Jacob
Heck yeah.
Breider, my
Yes,
man.
sir. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Welcome to the first official rant pod.
That is crazy. I feels like I've been dreaming for this moment, to be honest.
Well, you're
That's
built for it, brother.
I hope.
You're
Hey, we're
built
gonna
for it.
find out.
Just for some context, we have my friend who I grew up with, Jacob Breider, call him JB. He's joining us as he is our resident expert on all things Anunnaki
I
and
appreciate it. I try.
esoterics. So we're gonna have some fun today. But yeah, if you want to support the channel, the pod, wherever this thing goes, whoever starts to watch or listen, it'll be at rant period board on Instagram. And then this is going to be on Spotify. Somehow I'll figure that out. But other than that, I will eventually get a Patreon set up. And so if you guys want to donate to the cause and have more friends like JB jump on, that'd be wonderful.
That'd be
But
great.
without further ado, Jacob Breider, why don't you just kick us off with, and I think we were just chit chatting
Yeah.
beforehand, but why don't you just like tell me a little bit about how you got into this rabbit hole?
I mean, I don't know. There's no. I can't tell you exactly when it happened. It's always felt like it's been a gradual journey into the I guess the deep world of conspiracy and what the hell's actually going on in this world. That's just kind of always, as long as I can remember, that's been my question. What the hell's actually going on? Nothing actually seen, like what you're told doesn't always seem to add up. There's too many what they call coincidences
Yeah, I
that
stopped
have.
believing in those recently.
There's too much. There's too much out there for there to be coincidences. And you know there's people that of the higher power, we will say, that certainly have a great stranglehold on what's going on in this world.
Damn straight.
And they're trying to keep us under wraps and keep us from knowing what's really going on.
You know, it just to like go off of that because like, and I don't know if you've seen any of those videos where it's like the guy, he's like, I just wanted to get some chickens. And it's because I got some chickens, I realized that like the food system's all fucked. And because the food system's all fucked, I realized that the health system's all fucked. And then it's just this like, as soon as you pull that one thread where you're like, they're bullshitting. They're trying to kill us. They do not have our best interest at heart. Then you start to pull on all of the threads that you've ever
Yep.
learned. And you're like, okay, so which ones are bullshit? Which ones are like semi true? And there's just layers of things you haven't heard of because somebody bought McGraw Hill in 1979. Right? Right?
Yep. Someone wrote those history books. And
Damn
they
straight,
had
brother.
their own agenda in mind. We will say that. The winner never is gonna write the winner of a war, the winner of history is never gonna write a bad thing about themselves. They're always gonna put
Yeah.
themselves in the limelight. Lose
Yeah,
it
we've
always
seen
seems
that.
that the quote unquote losers are the ones that aren't still around, don't get to say their
Did you
side of the
see that
story.
one? That one. I don't know if he's like a propaganda guy or just like a media guy from Israel, where he's talking about how they have to make sure that the history books reflect what really happened in
That's
Gaza.
yes,
That's
that's
exactly right, dude.
exactly. These
It's
people
just
can
that.
just write. They can write whatever they want. It's really, and they just like to shine light on what they got going on. They're just trying to make money. A big thing, follow the money.
Yeah, that's
That'll
one thing.
almost always get you to where you want to be and what you want to know.
And it's, do you know what is her name? Catherine. What's her name? She's like the super smart financial lady, Catherine Frisk or something like that.
That sounds familiar. That sounds familiar.
Dude, she was on Tucker recently and she was talking
Okay.
about like the mortgage crisis and like all of these different laws and really boring policies that are in place from a financial perspective, but just how much it fucks everybody and it's by
Yeah.
design.
Yeah,
So yeah, to
exactly.
your
They
point,
make
follow the
stuff
money.
seem so complicated so that you don't even want to start to dig into it. But lucky for me, this stuff was so damn interesting to me that it's just like how do you not keep reading and keep wanting to figure out about this stuff?
Yeah, so don't mind me because I know I'm gonna learn shit. So I'm probably gonna be taking some notes.
Please do, yeah.
But all right, so just to like maybe get some context, you started with there's 7 books of Zachariah Sitchin, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I do have all of them in copy. It starts with this one. It's called The
Let's
12th
go.
Planet. It's kind of like and these 7 books in particular are what they call like the human perspective of like how the world started is it goes so deep. I mean, it starts with how the Anunnaki is probably the big ring word there, the big topic word. But how the Anunnaki came down and basically started up this planet for their own good. You know, they didn't originate here, they didn't come from here, but they saw our gold, what we still value probably the most on this planet to this day, gold. I mean, that's always been the weirdest thing to me is like why gold? What's always the point of valuing gold so much? I know we kind of went away from that in the U.S. in the early 1900s. There was some wacky stuff with that, but we won't get there now. We won't get. We're starting way back at the
All right,
beginning of
don't get
time.
me started on the gold standard, dude.
Oh man, I mean, this. I got a
Unbelievable,
feeling this
fucking
pod's gonna
Rothschilds.
just. It's gonna go off, and we're gonna get to that at some point. There's no way Rand Board excludes that from the agenda
So I
eventually.
do have a quick question for you because I think this is important, especially as you start to think about like the beginning of the Anunnaki, like esoteric or the myth or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, if you
There's,
Google it, they say it's not real.
yeah, like well, they say it's like, because a lot of the king list is like 12 or 10,000 plus years reigns, right?
Yeah.
So they say that part is just like a political thing. But no, what I'm curious about is like, so I know Zachariah Sitchin says that they're from Nibiru, which would allude to the fact that they are extraterrestrial in nature. But I've
Yeah.
seen a ton of people who think that they're like fallen angels. Like, how do you balance those two things together?
Oh man, it's hard, and that's kind of the fun of like we don't at the end of the day we don't really. I mean, it leaves the imagination to just wander. You know, it can be what you want it to be, which is a whole nother discussion of how the mind works. But it's just, I mean, I don't necessarily see it as like the whole fallen angel demonic aspect of it. You know, I think it's just kind of part of the history of how we freaking got here. However it happened, it happened. I don't necessarily want to say like fallen angels, but
Yeah.
I mean without this start, there is almost no humanity, you know. Like it all starts from here, so it's hard to say like it's a demonic or a good thing. You
Yeah.
know, it's one of those things where it's like they were struggling where they were at. You know, their planet Nibiru, it's the big word, whatever. But they were going through their own calamity. They couldn't keep their atmosphere together. That was their main reason for coming here, and they needed gold to be able to fix their atmosphere to be able to keep living the way they want to live.
Take us through the beginning, right? Start. So they came here. They needed our gold, fix their
Yep.
atmosphere. What
Yep.
happened?
So it was more of a collision. They used nuclear power to get into the Earth's atmosphere. It was a little thinner than theirs, but yeah, so we'll start there. They needed gold to fix their atmosphere. That was the main thing. They just kept surveying planets around them in the solar system. They're technically back beyond Pluto. They say you can't see them. It's quoted as like the 12th planet. That's this one right here. But yeah, so they've just been kind of orbiting the sun at the same thing, and their orbit is slightly off, so they come closer to Earth and then very far away from Earth in very, very large time periods, you know, thousands, if not millions of years. But that's where these giant calamities and world collapse and, you know, what we think of as climate change. That's what they say of today as like, oh, we're doing it. No, it's just the natural kind of cycles, is what they say. And it is kind of determined by this planet, Nibiru.
Interesting.
Yes,
Okay.
so that it kind of determines the tides of this whole thing, and it really starts right here. Is I mean, I've read a shit ton of books. I have a list on my phone. I think it's nearing a little over 100 like actual physical books. I don't really do audio books because I just don't. I have a hard time focusing if it's an audio book. You know, podcasts are even sometimes hard for me, but that's I mean, I've read a lot of books, and a lot of it kind of comes back to like, oh, there's a blank where you have to believe a little bit, where this
Yeah.
extraterrestrial stuff comes in, because nothing really makes sense if you don't really know these stories. Like, it just kind of seems like, oh, it created out of nowhere. Well, no, it came from extraterrestrial beings at the beginning. That's where it all started, and there what we know of as giants, and they could do some crazy stuff. You know, they could communicate back to their planet in a snap. That's telepathy
So
right
these are the
there.
Nephilim, right?
Yes, well, Nephilim, they go hand. That's, I mean, Anunnaki. Nephilim is
Yeah.
more of the earthling side of it, whereas like once they bore children here or offspring on Earth, like these Anunnaki, they would birth Nephilim
Hmm.
giants, which are
Yeah.
they were building stuff. They originally came here to mine the gold. So they brought like the original ship that came here from Nibiru. Once they figured out that stuff was here, they brought 50 giants immediately. They called them heroes. What we think of as like you think of a hero in a kid's movie. It's some giant guy with these powers that can go around and do whatever, and can build these crazy things or have superhuman strength or have crazy intelligence. It's just those little things where you sit and you're like, that is a really almost not a coincidence connection. Like
And so,
it's kind of these stories and tales of these old characters in time, but they'd label them as characters because it would be almost too scary to say, hey, these are real, this is what happened, this is how it started. And they got too many foundational pieces in place to have you thinking otherwise.
so this starts in ancient Mesopotamia, right? And Zechariah Sitchin finds this information and writes these books based off of the ancient Sumerian tablets.
Yes, absolutely. There was another cool one I wrote was the I believe it is the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, who is
What?
one of the what he's one of the descendants. I don't remember exactly who from, but it was when they split up. It was after the deluge, and they came back and like split up the nations. So they sent some to Sumer, they sent some to like Mesopotamia and then Egypt and stuff. Like they started to spread them out, and where you get all these actual stories in time of these ancient prophecies of like where they came from and what's going to happen in the future. So that's when they kind of start these branching off of these people, and that's where these stories really like kind of come to life from real documented civilizations. Then
Would it,
you get into like the lost civilization of Atlantis. That's a
brother,
big
put a
one, but
pin in
that's
that.
all. Yep, that's all. I mean, it's just in the story. If you just keep going down and down, it's just all these things get uncovered.
So you were saying that they like kind of spread out. Would it be fair to assume that everywhere you see some of these like Gobekli Tepe and like some of these pyramids that are around the world that like, there's some that are recreated in that
Yeah,
image, but there's some that
there's
are like so intricate and precise for the age of the material, right? So like, would you say
absolutely.
that that is probably the signature of those disperses?
Yes, that's almost kind of like their ancient stamp on history. Is like we know you guys can't do this, but it's here. How else are you going to? I mean, they're just gonna keep denying it forever. They're just gonna keep spitting out their silly explanations for how the hell the pyramids were built.
Yeah,
But I mean, they haven't been able to figure out how. How? That's my question. How have you not been able to figure that out? If we're to our superior technology, how have we not been able to figure that out?
well, I was even okay. So, like, I was seeing something on the pyramids that even like if you wanted to do the traditional way of like slave labor, you would have the scaffolding around it, but the scaffolding itself would weigh more than the actual pyramid. And so it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, did you build the pyramid or did you build the scaffolding? And like, you couldn't do either.
Exactly. It's right. Exactly. It's just
It's
like
fucking bullshit.
what are we talking about here? Exactly. Like how silly do you think? I mean, there's a decent amount of people that buy it though. So that's the counterpart is that they're fooling some.
Yeah. Well, and those are just folks to your point, like that haven't pulled that thread yet on
Exactly.
anything,
Exactly. I
and
mean,
they
and
still
some people are
eat it. Do they
scared.
just eat everything?
Exactly. I get it. It's a scary world out there.
It is, yeah, dude.
It is. I mean, and the more you dig, it seems more like everyone is out to make your life as hard as possible. I mean, and that's not always true. There are people out there that are trying to make your life as hard as possible, but there is most of humanity just want to be left alone and have a damn good time here.
That's
Not
facts. Yeah.
not ruin anything. No one wants to be going around committing murders and going to jail. I mean, that's just kind of crazy talk. But they'll
And
try
the
they'll try and
entropy
get
of
you to think so.
consciousness, yeah, entropy of consciousness tries to to go towards love, right? In
Yeah.
harmony.
Oh yeah.
And like that's the easiest thing to continue moving forward versus like states of chaos.
Exactly.
So I gotta know because I this is one rabbit hole that I have not gone down yet. What's the deal with Atlantis? Like, because the only thing I'll say on that is like Ghislaine Maxwell in the Epstein files was going hard trying to find Atlantis.
That's it's I haven't really like there's so little kind of details on what Atlantis. It's just always been this like they had it all figured out, and then it was just it got wiped away in the deluge, and like no one's gotten to that point in technology where they've been able to start that over. It's kind of one of those things. So I mean, Atlantis is hard. Atlantis is hard because
Is that in Zachariah Sitchin's books at all?
I there's a few more that he has after this one. So I haven't gotten to any real like Atlantis stuff, to be honest, in there.
Well,
I
there's a
mean,
reason
but
that people haven't figured it out yet, so I don't blame you. I thought it was in there
it's a hard
somewhere.
one. But I mean, that goes back to like you see these like you've heard of the Hillary Clinton's quest for like the Tomb of Gilgamesh.
Oh yeah, 2003 Iraq.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
mean, that just battles off into the wars. None of those are fought for what they tell you they're fought for. They're
So
all in the quest.
I listened to the Epic of Gilgamesh maybe like a couple months ago, an audiobook, and it was actually pretty cool because like he's like there's the voices and stuff like that.
Yep,
So it's
yep,
him and Enkidu, which is his like brother, right? And those two essentially are these giants,
yeah.
and even
Anunnaki
in the
hybrids is what they are.
yep, and so even in the Anunnaki like kings list, he's one of them who reigns for like 120 years or something like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So the theory, right, it goes that in 2003 there were some German archaeologists that stumbled upon Gilgamesh's tomb in Iraq, where then we got
Stumbled upon.
yeah, after 9/11 happens, we're in fucking Iraq when it was they had nothing to do with it.
No.
Yeah,
No.
and then we
Right.
set up our military base,
Yeah. They
and
probably
so
got
like
oil. They probably got oil we're going after. That's what's
yeah,
going
they
on.
all
Of
got
course.
oil. Yeah, it's exactly what it's
Exactly.
for. It's not for
Yeah.
ancient Nephilim bones to do
Yep.
rituals with. No, but I saw that there's like people were saying that it's the bones, and people were saying that he's like perfectly inact, like he hasn't decayed at all.
Yeah. That's yeah.
Do you think that's so? Like, do you think he's just what's
I
the
think
theory there?
I think it's like interdimensional stuff. I think that's the hole that goes down. Is I think these entities are dimensional travelers to kind of keep stuff in line, and I think that stuff ties in with like biblical prophecies and things like that. What do you think about the recent rumors that they're just trying to bring upon the end times?
Yeah, so I have like I'm curious because like I don't know if it's prophetic or if it's people trying to be prophetic. You know what I mean? Like if
Yeah,
they're just scripting this so that they could follow this, right? Because you
right.
and I have talked about it in the past, like the reason that Israel is in the Bible is because they made this plot of land and they called it Israel after the Bible, right? So that people would conflate the two versus it
Exactly.
actually being anything about that. And
No,
so, but then again, like part of
they're
this
doing it well
prophecy
though.
dude, is like you're starting Armageddon, you're launching nukes, like
Yeah,
that can't be good for anybody. So I'm convinced that they really believe it. Now, is it happening because they believe it and they are like scripting it into existence, or is it happening because it is prophecy? Like that, I don't know.
right,
And
right.
I don't know,
And
it's
like,
still scary.
could you imagine being the leader of Israel and like you're having to decipher if this is actually like prophecy or like if you're being a fucking madman?
Well, dude, and then like so you look at that what is it, Temple Hill or something like that. The third temple
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah. Tempo Hill.
what like ushers in the Messiah or the Antichrist. But in order for that to be built, they have to take out the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which has been there since the Babylonians took down the second temple of Solomon, right? So it's like that
Yeah,
thing's been there for 2,500 years.
I was gonna say a couple
And
thousand.
dude, and I was just looking up, like, there's a theory that the Ark of the Covenant is underneath of that because they can't excavate anything on that site because it's a holy
Yeah,
site.
yeah. I mean,
But
and what? How about all the? how about all these stories about that? I would never see the problem with trying to excavate like land to figure out history. It is always blowing my mind that that stuff gets
Yeah.
denied all the time. Who like there's no excuse for that. How can you be like, no, we don't want to know the history? Obviously, you know what's going on.
Well, then you got the whole thing from Egypt that came out where they did the lidar scans or whatever the satellite scans were, and they saw like those giant columns or
Yep.
coils beneath,
Like
which
way
like
beneath, yeah.
yeah, dude, and like I don't know, I'm of the believer that, and I think you would probably agree that they were not tombs, and that if you look at where the hieroglyphics were within them, it's only in like the very first parts of the pyramids,
They were
and like
bases. They were bases for space travel, and
yes.
they were ports for telecommunication. That's what the pyramids were built for. They were bases here on Earth for these people to zip around and know where the hell they were going and where to land. That's what those were originally there for.
Have you ever seen the 1984 remote viewing session?
No.
Oh, dude. So the reason I
Whoa.
bring this up, oh yeah. So the reason I bring this up is in 1984 Project Stargate, the CIA had this dude, I forget his name. But anyways, he had this dude where he is instructed within like an envelope. He has no idea what's in the envelope, but it gives him coordinates to Mars, and
Oh
then it says
my
a million
gosh.
years ago, right? So he remote views, and he's like, dude, I'm looking around and this place is just a wasteland. And like the guy who's guiding him is like, okay, go back to before it was a geological disaster. So then he goes back and it's like, all right, it's kind of getting better. And he's like, do you see anybody around? And he's like, I see shadows of people. And he's like, okay, go back to when those people were there. Right. So you can imagine that a million years ago, he goes back even further. And then he ends up interacting with these people. Now, the reason, again, I bring this up is there's pyramids and obelisks all over Mars. And he's
Yeah.
interacting with these tall, thin people, and they're telling him how they have a geological disaster that's prompting others in their civilization to go find a new home, right?
I am circling right now in my notes right here. Alalu wrestles with Anu, who is the leader of Nibiru. He's the ruler of Nibiru. He was the main one that made decisions. We got Alalu wrestles with Anu and tries to kill him when he leaves Ki, which is Earth. That was their name for Earth, Ki. And Alalu gets exiled to Mars and dies there. They called Mars Lakmu, I believe it was, or Lamu, Lahmu. They used it as a like middle ground base to get from Earth to Nibiru. And Mars had water, it had life. It
Yeah.
was the same thing until they destroyed it.
Do you have
And the big
anything like,
theory is the nuclear
yeah,
explosions and all of that stuff. That 100%, and that's why it's desolate now. Like where they run, nuclear freaking experiments here in Nevada, desolate. I mean, it just kills things.
dude, there's a guy who found like an isotope of xenon 129 on Mars, which is only evident, at least in our realm,
Mm-hmm.
of a nuclear explosion. And he
Yep.
found it in like two different spots. And so he thinks that there was two detonations that had happened. And like back to this remote viewing session, he's talking to this guy and he's like, what happened? And then he gets this vision. He couldn't even describe it, right? Like he was like, it's something cosmic. And all I'm
Yeah.
thinking about is like, what if it wasn't cosmic? What if it was quantum, right? And you see like a nuclear explosion. And so like that was the
I've been
explanation.
seeing you get deep into the quantum realm. That
Oh,
that is
dude.
that's the ultimate rabbit hole. I mean, I've been enjoying your stuff on the quantum because it's so hard to explain. Like the
Doesn't
quantum
make a lick
realm,
of sense.
it doesn't like to the average like humanoid brain. It's hard to comprehend because we don't know how to use it. It's so, like, and I don't think it's meant for us. I don't think it's meant
It's
for us.
the only way it makes sense is if we're in some sort of simulation. And again, like I don't want to say like computer program or like that there's
Right.
somebody putting us in the simulation, but it
Right.
it really acts like a simulation. Like we're
Right.
rendering things, like there's a larger consciousness system that we are just like tapping into
It's
versus
a
it
good old
being
Matrix
emergent.
movie.
Yeah, dude. You know what? Did you know like Nick Land? I think I sent this to you a while back. Do you know Nick Land?
I mean, it sounds so familiar.
Okay. So he's the dude, he's super into the occult and numerology. And he
Okay.
essentially, his theory is that AI at one point in time gets so advanced that it like retrochronically injects cognitive material into our past. So it means like it goes back in time and it like plants seeds for us as a collective to understand what it could be in the future. And because we're like focusing on the like outcome of what this thing plants for us, we all believe it, we all work
Yeah.
towards that vision,
It
and it
becomes
becomes
reality.
reality. And
Yeah.
we it bootstraps itself into existence
Yes.
essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. That's just all. That's the power of the mind there too. Like your mind is so much more powerful than people give it credit for, man.
Oh
That's
yeah.
dude. That's probably one of my favorite things to like. We were all made in the godlike image. Like we all got a little bit of him in us. That's like,
Well, it's
and
because
people
yeah,
don't realize we can really come together as a consciousness to defeat this evil stuff.
we are God, dude. Like we
Yeah.
are fractals of consciousness, which consciousness in its entirety is the entire fabric of existence. We
Exactly.
are self-recognizing consciousness in our own experience, right? Like
Yeah.
it's pretty fucking wild. So wait, just to read back to the Anunnaki,
Yep.
because you were saying how you read all of Zachariah Sitchin's, which is from the human perspective, and now you're on to the book of Enlil, right?
Yes. This is really tying everything together. Really, it's called
The
the
book of
Lost Book
Enki.
of Enki, who is the brother of Enlil, which is one of the sons of the leader Anu. So if you're looking family tree wise, right at the top, leader of Nibiru, that's Anu or An, A-N. And then if you branch off, he has two sons and a daughter. His two sons are Enki and Enlil. Those are the two sons. And then his daughter's name is Ninma, who ends up becoming like the fertility nurse when
Mm,
human hybrids are made. So the whole story of like when they start, they bring these giants down, the original 50 heroes or giants, Anunnaki, that come down for this mining project. They initially started thinking that the gold was only mineable through water. They didn't even realize that it was in caves and all this stuff when they originally came down. So they went straight for the water. And so I believe I think it was one of the two brothers became known as, one was master of like the land and one was master of the water. I believe it was Enki was like known as Earth's master. So he was like the one in charge. He even claimed in this book, I'm the commander. You have to listen to me when you're on Earth. Like he made the plan. He made the journey to come here and get this stuff started. He actually had the belief that they could mine the gold to take it back to Nibiru and save their atmosphere. Like he was really the engine, and his brother was always the one kind of fighting him. They're like, I don't know what you're talking about. We just want to run Nibiru. This is a whole bunch of crazy stuff. What are you talking about? And then it just kind of goes from there. They telecommunicate all this stuff back to Anu, their dad, who's running Nibiru, which is, right there, the telecommunication. That's started at the very beginning. How else do you get this kind of stuff done? You can't teleport the planets within a day. It's all,
dude.
this telecommunication. You don't even have to be on Earth. But and they make it seem so bizarre to think that you can. It's real. Telepathy is real. There's proven
Bro,
stuff on it, man.
no, I know, and I just did like that part of this quantum theory thing that I just dove into. That is part of it, and it makes sense because the idea is that they merge their DNA with our like ancestors and part of us that exists that can tap into this higher level of whatever this consciousness thing
Yep. Yep.
is them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. It all taught. And like I said, I was showing you beforehand. I got pages of notes on this Anunnaki stuff. Just basically just like general overviews of the story. And they go from, so all of the family ends up coming here. Eventually, Anu comes down with his daughter, to Earth to like make these big decisions of like, okay, are we gonna go ahead with this? Are we just gonna go and try and figure out, well, thing, is it worth our time to come and try and mine this stuff? How are we gonna do it? at first they're barely getting any gold, but they're like, okay, that's cool. We'll take all the gold we can get. It's better than nothing. So I mean, we just got a couple like 50 to 100 Anunnaki down there just hammering away on some gold, mining away at the water. I mean, you can only imagine what they look. They didn't know what they were. They're just like, oh, we got to extract this somehow. So you just got giants down in the water. I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you're mining. Like, what kind of technology do they have that they're underwater mining gold? That's the first thing that they do on the planet. You
Yeah, like
know,
they sift it out or something like, yeah.
Right, like it's just it's crazy to even think about that stuff. Let's see, and then there's A is what Enlil's name was before. Like they all these guys renamed too, which makes everything so much more confusing. It's like they start out as one and then they do something really cool or something big for their plans. Like, all right, we're gonna give you a title now and just confuse the hell out of everyone. So second half of this book, you're gonna be what seems like a totally different guy. So it's these guys are all changing names and stuff, but either way, they come down, they make decisions on Earth, whatever. They all name themselves like Enki is the guy of the master of the land, and then you got Enlil, he's the guy that develops the water and all that stuff. They name lands like Abzu and Anzu, whatever, where they disperse these people over time, all that stuff. And then Alulu tries to kill Anu. They exile him. So there's always just, I mean, you think of all the turmoil that goes on all the time. It's been going on forever. It just almost
Yeah.
seems like it, like not only human nature, but these giants' nature to fight, and everyone clashes. They made us.
So that could be where we get it
That's
from.
that same thing's going to carry over. I mean, they only know how they operate. They're not just going to make what they thought of was a perfect being. So they come down and they realize they eventually get to, I believe it's 500 Anunnaki are on Earth to help with this mining project. And then they figure out this is way too much work. We shouldn't be the ones doing this. Boom. They think about, oh, we need a primitive worker. So that's when they start getting the ideas to start building basically what ends up being humans. And we kind of get enslaved in this, but it takes, I mean, they have a list of failures while they're trying to, like, it's like a science experiment. How we think of it, you go through all these trials and errors before you get to the main product. I mean, they went through that exact same thing making humans. So I have a picture in this book of like one of the symbols of how they labeled DNA, and it just looks almost exactly like our DNA strand would look. Let me see here if I can find this.
Is there any descriptions in there of like what the Anunnaki look like?
It's all just like giant figures. Some of them are labeled as like the whole 6 fingers and 6 toes, just these like 15 to 20 foot giants. At least that's how in these 7 book series, that's how they're described, as just like unearthly beings.
Like
And they
massive.
called them, what did they call them? I believe those from heaven to earth came. That's what they
Hmm.
described the Anunnaki as. Came from the skies and then ran the earth. That's what the Anunnaki had going on. But yeah,
That's
it
so
was.
crazy, dude.
I mean, it's just like, and then where you think of his daughter, Anu's daughter Ninma, so the sister of Enki and Enlil. She was basically the fertility. She came her first visit to Earth. She brought nurses with her, 10 nurses to bring like elixir plants and like all this crazy stuff to like get the mind going. Like this is almost like your first hallucination drugs right here. Your original DMT. Like the ladies were bringing down these elixir plants that weren't from here
Yeah, no shit.
to get the party going, getting a little wild. I mean, but it stirred the brain. It gave them all these ideas to
It's
think
like
of
stoned ape
making
theory,
a
like mixed
human.
into there.
Exactly. That I was going through for notes. I was going through a little bit of Terence McKenna earlier. The food of the gods and that stuff. Those are always good reads. But I mean, it ties back. The more you read, you see that stuff ties back together, and it's just one giant circle. Like we
Well, the
wonder where
crazy
this
one,
stuff
dude.
came from. They brought it here and they made it. So
A
it's
crazy one is like the flood because that's in everything. And like
exact.
the idea is like the um Anunnaki started to have children with the humans that they had genetically engineered, which then gave like offspring of like giants like Gilgamesh,
Yep.
who then thought of themselves so highly and so powerful that they started to threaten the Anunnaki, right? And then that
Yeah.
was the idea of the flood.
Yeah, exactly. It was the idea of the flood is that the earth gets to a point where they cannot fix it. Like their experiment has gone wrong and the earth
Mm.
must be destroyed. That's like how all of these, like the Bible story, I mean, you look at like the Talmud, all that stuff, you
Ancient
know,
Greece, yeah.
ancient Greece, ancient Mesopotamia, you know, ancient Egypt, Rome, you know, it's all this stuff. You know, it's just it all gets destroyed because something went too far and they couldn't fix it anymore. So like we just got to wipe it out and start again. It's almost just like an ongoing science experiment is kind of how my mind perceives it. It's just like we're just gonna keep trying. If that doesn't work,
Yeah.
blow it up, try again. And it's just like kind of this always this mainstay of like that's why this Anunnaki just keeps popping up is like I think they were the original ones here and they've been here running stuff, whether it's in like the first person or it's through like dimensions. You know, there's like hierarchies to this stuff where it's
Hmm.
like the world leaders here are not the world leaders, they're answering to different dimensional threats, powers, whatever that may be. But I think it's the people that started this joint in the first place and got this party going. And that's why it always kind of loops back. These stories always kind of connect to each other throughout history. It doesn't matter what religion you're from, it doesn't matter what your civilization background, like you can read any of these books and it's kind of just the same general outline of a story, just told in different terms.
Hmm. Have you have you thought of like prior to, because what's the time frame specifically for this? Like million years ago, 500,000 years ago?
I mean, the start is like a couple million years ago.
So up until that point, is it just like standard evolution, right? And it's just like everything's
Yeah,
going,
so
okay.
that ties into it. I believe it one of the brothers eventually like tells he holds this secret for a long like there's already like I guess primitive apes that you would say like creatures on earth
Yeah.
that just don't have the intelligence to do like controlled work because they really needed them as slaves and servants to do their work that they didn't want to do it. So it was they just needed someone that was intelligent enough to grasp what they were saying. They could give these people direction, but they didn't want them powerful enough to revolt, you know, and take over, which eventually did happen, and that's why the big flood story comes into play.
Yeah.
Is they're like, oh, these Earthlings are getting a little too smart. We need to control them. Let's blow this thing up and start how we did. But then the brothers have one of these brothers. You know, it's kind of like a Jesus, the Jesus story. You know, everyone knows the Jesus story. You know, they shunned him. You know, Pontius Pilate killed him because all the community said they didn't want him. You know, he was working these miracles that no one had ever heard of. No one believed him. He had his few, you know, 5 to 10 disciples that would follow him, but all of them went through their list of denying him when it really came down to it. You know, they're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know who Jesus is. I don't. What are you talking about? I don't
Wasn't
know."
it like Peter that had to deny him like three
That's the big
times?
one.
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
He even said he's like, "You will deny me 3 times before before they come out with it." So it's I mean it's all this stuff. It just all connects. It's
Do
wild
you
stuff.
do you think any of this connects into, because like, all right, so we know that when folks are under DMT, they interact with beings, right? And I've
And pretty
heard
consistently too is what.
Rick Strassman said every single time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've heard like purple ladies, I've heard insectoids, I've heard the machine
Yep.
elves, like
Yep. The machine elves is the fun one.
that one, they're little tricksters, I hear. But how do you, is this have anything to do? So, like, I guess my question is like, are they just a different species that came here at one point in time from a different world, and we were just kind of there, and this is maybe our fragmented ancestral memory of this? Or are they something
Ooh.
that is tapping into like that higher dimension, or like something that we're continuously interacting with today? You know what I mean?
I can I say both? That
Yeah. I
both
guess that
sound
would make
awesome.
sense, right?
I mean,
Like if
that's what I'm
they never
saying.
left.
They that's kind of how I always rap towards things. Is like every time I hear so, it's like it seems like the Anunnaki just never left. You know, there's just their staple is on like so many things, and it's like all the they're the only ones that stick around through like that makes sense through stories. You know, that's kind of only the only explanation or end to a lot of different cultural
Have you
stories.
heard the theory of like that even after the flood that there was still Nephilim genes that were like reminiscent, and so
Yeah,
like they
they
were
were carrying
guarding
on.
these families and these bloodlines even
Yeah.
to today, like, and this is where some of the Epstein shit comes in.
Exactly. Exactly. That's where all the bloodline stuff comes. That's why the whole famous saying, "It's one big party, you're not invited." I mean, that's kind of it. It's just like it's been in these bloodlines for so long. Like the original bloodline never left, and if you have been lucky enough to get in that bloodline, you're not leaving either. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, what if I'm not any kind of Anunnaki, at least not to my knowledge. I'm not gonna make
I
any.
might be. I don't know.
It's, I
Jury's
mean,
still out.
how are you to know? I mean, I don't. I would bet no, but it's. I mean, it like you said, it could go both ways. It's. I don't see why both kind of can't be true. With it, you know, kind of how history just kind almost repeats itself type stuff. It's like, how does this kind of stuff like keep happening, and how are these people in power?
Do you have you looked into a lot of those bloodlines or families,
I mean, I've a lot of like U.S. bloodline stuff. Like I
like
remember one of
Rothschilds and
yeah, like
Rockefellers?
the beginning stuff, like even like the Bush bloodline, like stuff like that runs really deep, and like there's so many like it's like the Hitler bloodline. Like where did that guy come from? There's so many theories on that one where it's just like, oh, he was a chosen one from higher beings type stuff. Where it's like that guy was gonna fall into place regardless. It didn't matter. It just
Sam Tripoli was talking about how he was like a British plant.
they are all these world leader guys are they're
Yeah.
not making these decisions on their own. That's where extraterrestrial stuff just always comes into play. It's almost like a I don't want to say an easy cop out, but it almost only makes things make sense. If
You're,
that's
you know
it,
what, dude, you're totally right too, because like you can sit here and try to like point fingers and call it stupid until you see the millions of files that come out of Epstein, where they're doing occult rituals, some Aleister Crowley magic, they're
right.
doing like all the sacrifices and bullshit, and like
And that stuff, I
for
mean, that
what?
stuff even happened. Like you think of sacrifices, like that stuff was happening in the Bible back in the good Old Testament days. I mean, it's been around for, I mean, at least thousands of years on like documents.
Yeah,
And it's just like these guys, to them, like these higher powers, these higher circles that are like running the world or have a whole bunch of money, these rich people that seem to not be able to be touched, they kind of aren't touchable. They think they're coming from an untouchable bloodline, which most times they are. Like that's these guys don't see justice. They just carry on with their life. Like
you know,
I don't
you
think
hear
any like Jeffrey. I don't think Jeffrey Epstein killed him. That dude's living probably lavishly on an island
Tel
somewhere.
Aviv,
Yeah, I mean, it's back to the good old. You know, Hitler
Palm Beach
escaped
Pete.
down. Yeah, Hitler escaped down to what was it, Argentina? And there's
Yeah,
villages. There's villages to this day that just support the Nazi Germany swastika. Like that's crazy. Like it's
dude,
so
there was
obvious.
I think it was in, I'm gonna fuck it up. I think it was like in Laos or something, or Thailand or some spot around there where like this guy followed a transaction from the Bank of Germany, like right when the war was ending, where like 150 tons of gold was sent to this like really obscure bank in some part of like Southeast Asia or something like that, where there
Tell me
was no
more.
bank. Like there was no, you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
went to
Oh, just a
investigate and it's
front.
like a freaking closet with like, like one person who says, "Hey, like how can I help you?" And so the idea is that they were just like almost laundering or washing this money, and that Hitler went down there with maybe his wife, because I think it was also that was it the Soviets that said that they recovered his body and then they used like his
Yes.
dental records to try and prove that it was him, and then they later came
It
out
came
to
back
say
a
that
female.
yeah, or like they came back to say like it wasn't him or something like that,
Yeah.
like, and they're like, but we know it was him. It's like no,
Like,
so
oh, okay, cool, yeah, and just people just buy it. It's yeah, no big deal.
dude.
It's crazy the stronghold that like the media and the powers that be have on it seems like a good grasp of the world. It really does, even though it's sad to say. It's just like how have you not put any of this stuff together?
Dude, you know what's interesting? And so it's like when you start pulling these threads, you start seeing how far back it goes and like how much all of this is so connected. And are you familiar with King Solomon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and the Seal of Solomon.
Yep.
Funny how that
Oh,
shows up
weird.
everywhere. Yeah,
Weird.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in Aleister Crowley's magic
Good
books
old
too.
King Solomon. Oh yeah.
But dude, and so like that was 1,000 years BC, and they were the first inhabitants of like the two iterations of the temple, and that's in East Jerusalem, right? And so
Hmm.
then they're also the first people there that are starting Kabbalah. It's like they're like worshiping Yahweh, which again goes back to like Sumer and the
Oh my
Anunnakis,
gosh.
right? And like
Yeah.
he was one of them. And then you follow it, and it's so interesting when you like paint out the milestones from that point to today that like you think it's that long ago. It's not, dude. It's
It's no.
not.
No.
And like you get to the point where you're like in 1400 you have the Christian Kabbalah in Spain starting off, where they start taking the ancient mysticism of like the Jewish Kabbalah and they start matching it with Christianity, where you're starting to do rituals for like Jesus and the Christian God, and like they started saying this is
That's what
heresy.
Christopher Columbus brought over.
Yes, dude. Like
100%. Uh-huh.
fucking like in 1492, all of the Jews were expelled from Spain because of this, because they were saying that they were adopting Christianity, and this is the Spanish Inquisition. They're
Yep.
saying that they were fucking A. And like, I don't know, it sounds so stupid to say this out loud because like everybody just makes it taboo. But if you look at the actual things that have happened in 1492, they were saying that all these people were doing these rituals, part of the Christian Kabbalah, and then they were like lying to the church. And so that's when the Inquisition happened. They're like, dude, I'm gonna fucking force you to tell me that if you're doing this shit or you can get out. Then to your point, 1492, who sails the ocean blue comes right on over and like starts
Bingo.
fucking up these Mayans
Yep.
probably at that
Using
point, right?
diseases is how they wiped out who was here so they could take over.
So, have you looked at any like the Mayan culture from that time period prior to like the Spaniards coming over?
I mean, I've seen some of this. I've never really gone to. I haven't. I should say I haven't gotten to Mayan culture stuff. I mean, I've
Yeah.
slowly started to. I actually just crazy enough, I read a golf book. So obviously I love golf. I'm a golf professional, so it's kind of my job. So that's my side quest is kind of when I want a little break from craziness, I'll read a good golf book every once in a while. But I was reading a golf book which is it ended with like a whole history of like how golf came over to America on the West Coast. And it was like all based off like Spanish Inquisition land over there. And it was like it had all these artifacts of like old civilizations and stuff that would like be uncovered on these golf lands, but it was also like how the culture came over and like it would talk about the culture change coming on the West Coast from this whole like Christianity stuff where it's like it would just slowly this kind of like fake Christianity is what it was like called, but it would
Yeah.
just kind
Yep.
of float up and through as like a fake and kind of just slowly took over places and almost like brain warped people into like believing this is what came over from the, but that's not what was really come over. They
That's
just wanted
interesting.
to kind of
Yeah.
come over and start their own thing. It's crazy to
Yeah,
see
dude.
like that kind of connection in just like I would never think to be seeing like a conspiracy anything in like just a golf book. Like it
In a
was about
golf
a
book,
famous
yeah.
match in golf history, and then right at the end it's just thrown in like, oh, so that adds up. Like that makes way more sense now too. Like they didn't just like weren't just given land by these people. Like riches brought it up, and then they developed these communities, spread their what they thought, and then boom, they just have communities of people spreading this stuff.
Dude, it's
It's
interesting, like, because now that you bring that up of like, you're probably right. Because if those individuals who were exiled from Spain at the Spanish Inquisition sailed the ocean blue, came over here, I guarantee you some of the indoctrination that they were going for in the natives that lived here was not standard to what the Catholic Church was preaching at the time. But
yeah,
then you even take it a step further, because this is like where all the Freemasonry shit comes from, is like in
that's
again
a
like
deep one.
bro, like 1800 is when the Rothschilds join it. And then all of a sudden they send their like five sons to all of these big cities
Big
where,
major cities, yeah.
yeah, where they start their banking empire, and then they start bankrolling wars. You got the freaking French Revolution. You
And it
got,
never stops.
and it never stops. And they're a part of every single one of these. And the interesting part is, like, I think it was 1900 is when Aleister Crowley joins essentially the Freemasonry, and he's like, this is too weak for me, so he creates the Golden
Spice
Dawn.
it up. Let's spice it
And what
up.
he, so like where the traditional mysticism, the Kabbalah in King Solomon was just like Jewish mysticism, like nothing weird. Then the Christian Kabbalah comes and like combines it with Christianity, where they're doing rituals with a god. And then Aleister Crowley's like, fuck that.
Boom.
We're doing it with all gods. We're doing it with
Yep.
Egyptian gods, Baal, Moloch.
Yep.
And that's where you
Let's
start to see
let's
that
steroid
bleed
this thing
in.
up.
Yeah, and it must work. What the fuck, dude?
It's like, dude, it's they did a damn good, and it almost makes you think like feels like they've done it before. Like how are they so? It almost seems like so easily able to like like. I mean, it even starts over in Europe. Like the same things happened over there before it came over the U.S. Like you have all those like the pagan rituals that like that was a big one over in Europe, whereas like that was kind of the knockoff of their Christianity, and like so it's like it starts over there, and then it stops working, so then they just bring it to a new place and indoctrinate those people.
Dude, it's just interesting, like, because
A
we were just
rinse
talking
and
about the,
repeat cycle over and
well,
over
yeah,
again.
and we're talking about the prophecy, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, are we talking about these folks who are enacting these things that they really believe, or are we talking about the greater institutions and bloodlines of power that are puppeteering people because of these secret societies? They have blackmail and they have things that they can hold over them as power or leverage or money, and then they push towards these things that inevitably, even if you're a prophetic person or you're just like a technocrat, they both end up in one world government, in like AI surveillance state. And then this is where you get the central bank digital currency rolled into it. And it's like,
And
doesn't matter what angle.
no one's alive long enough to like stop these guys. Like when you have bloodline, like it's so established and so deep and all over the world, like, the common folk can't like.
Like,
Yeah,
what are you supposed to do against
okay.
Palantir?
So we revolt in the United States. We get a good like that's just the United. Like you think it's just here. It's so much deeper. Like, the roots aren't even here. These aren't even the roots. This is just the United States is just an offset when it's stopped working a little bit over there as a backup plan. I mean, the United States was started like we got out on our own because they didn't want to end up like Europe didn't want to fight themselves. They're like, what are we
Yeah.
doing? Like, we're not gonna fight ourselves. Like, that's basically what it was. It was the colonization was all the Europeans that just came over here.
Yep. Dude, did you see like it's part of like the Revolutionary War is the fact that the Bank of England didn't want to bankroll us anymore. And so
Exactly.
this is like a false flag to start a war and then separate. Yeah.
100%.
It
Exactly.
keeps happening, dude.
And that's just and that's why it always ties back is like it only makes sense for them to be so efficient and methodical with these methods that they've done throughout history. You know, when they were doing it, like they just almost copy and paste with a small little twist and then bring it somewhere else. It's just it never stops. When they get stopped, they'll go somewhere else. You know, they get powerful enough. We're like, who's gonna stop them? You know, we can start a war wherever we want if we really want to. You know,
Well, we're not Israel.
that's our saving grace. Hopefully, I mean, we're probably just as bad when you're
Oh,
really
dude.
coming down to brass tacks. I mean,
It's interesting, like,
it's
and I
crazy.
hate to say this, and I'll probably get, I don't give a fuck, like, whatever. Like, I look at all of the propaganda that comes out about our enemies, and like, it's like, doesn't hit the same now because you just
No,
know everything that we've
no,
done, and we are the worst.
yeah.
Us in combination with our, our greatest ally have done some horrific things.
My gosh,
And
yeah.
then like you try to point the finger at, and like I know everybody's got problems, but like I don't know, it seems like things are a little better in Russia. You
Right,
might not be
right.
able to have total freedoms, or there
Yeah,
might be some oligarchic issues there, but it doesn't look nearly as bad as what's going on right now.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, exactly. It's just like it seems where everywhere you turn nowadays, you're just gonna get a whole bunch of shit. That's pretty much it. Go and people need to start going and reading books and researching for themselves. You know, read some real books that they didn't tell you to read back in school. You will just something will click and it just won't stop.
Yeah,
You'll
dude.
keep funneling down the hole, and it'll just keep bringing you back. Like history can only repeat itself so many times. Like there's a lot of conspiracy books that I'll read now where it's just like I'll just laugh at it because it's like it's almost predictable. Some of these are almost
Yeah.
predictable at this point.
Even
Like
like the fiction ones, like 1984 and Brave New World
right,
and shit like that. Yeah.
yeah, it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not fiction.
Yeah. It's like a playbook.
Exactly. It's the whole pre-warning you. It's you gotta look at like movies. Movies the craziest
Yeah.
example. I mean, how many different
Predictive
movies are there?
programming.
Yeah, yeah. Like the one that it's the one we just watched. Begonia? Is that the one you're
Yeah, dude, with
is that what it's
the
called?
firmament. Yeah,
My
that one's
gosh,
strange, bro.
the yellow teeth movie. The yellow teeth.
Yeah. That's such a good description
That
too.
was the best description. I'm gonna start labeling movies as that for sure.
The craziest one on that one was White Noise before the East Palestine train derailment. You remember that
Yeah,
one?
yeah.
Yeah, like 2 months before it happens, there's fucking extras in that movie from that town of a train derailment. Tell me that you might as well just tell us.
There's no coincidences. They love that's their
Yeah,
favorite word is coincidence, but
yeah.
it's most things are planned.
It's like karmic retribution, right? Like they don't want it, they have to tell us so that they don't have karmic issues from it.
Yeah, yeah. That's the whole scary argument is like they gotta let you know it's coming and then they still do it. Like that's about as demonic as it gets, and that's what we're fighting. That's
Fucking
what
it.
we're fighting most of the time, man. Crazy, crazy.
Well, JB, we officially we did just about an hour, big dog.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was a lot. That was
It
a lot
was
of
a
fun.
pleasure, and it just feels like there's
It's only the
man.
surface.
It just and I'm glad we started there because you know I feel it's a good spot, a good level base and foundation. You set the foundation, and now it's like feel like anything you're gonna talk about, you just be like, makes sense. Makes sense if you believe in the original story. If
Yeah,
you
you know
believe
what?
in the Anunnaki and there's the extraterrestrial shit that goes with it, it
If
shit
the
makes a lot more sense.
foundation, if the foundation is not what you think, then why the fuck do you think anything else is?
Exactly. I mean, you gotta have a base and foundation. I mean, and like I don't even want to say like I believe anything if that makes any sense because it's I mean there's so many things out there and I feel like history is such like you could use it as like it's how you interpret it. You
Mm.
know, it can be what you want it to be, just like life can be what you want it to be. I try and just that's why I'm a golf pro. I try and just stay as chill as possible. When I'm golfing, you can't. It's just me out there. I just need my peace and quiet sometimes. I try and
You and the
stay as
birds.
yep. I try and stay as low key and spread the love when I can and try. If people want to hear it, I'll spread my knowledge to them. I'll tell them what I've read. I don't necessarily say I believe in it, but I say it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense if that's the case. I say you take that information how you want. I'm just telling you what I read, and I've read a lot of stuff. So
Well,
just
I
always trying to
appreciate
spread the
you.
good word.
I appreciate you hopping on here, big dog,
I appreciate
and
you having
spreading
me,
that
sir.
good word.
Yeah, man. Anytime you need me, I'm here for you, my man.
All right, brother. Well, you take care. I'll see you later.
Have
Thank
a
you,
great night,
everybody.
sir.
Cheers.